Do 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 do. Berkey Emmons, 5x5. Nostradamus. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Happy first day. Happy Sunday. I don't expect much of a turnout because it's 8:30 in the morning on Sunday, and most people, hopefully, are sleeping in and or getting ready to go to church services or out in their garden. If you live, in a place where there's not 4 foot of snow on the ground currently. So I just wanted to actually disregard. I didn't want to get on here. The spirit said get on here, and the reason for that we'll get into in a moment. I have been battling for about the last 5 weeks, going on 6 weeks. Flesh versus spirit, flesh versus spirit, flesh versus spirit. This has been a constant theme of my life in the last month and a half. And I am frankly exhausted from recoiling back and forth between flesh and spirit, because in the spirit right now, the growth and the revelation and the trust in the Most High that I am developing is it's like being made new again. And when you discuss high level concepts, hold on, I gotta close this curtain, otherwise Jay Dudley's gonna punch me in the face when I see him. Is that better, Dad? So much better, too. No people could see you on camera. Okay, thanks, Dud. No problem, too. All right. When you discuss high-level spiritual concepts, at some point you brush up against the inability to articulate what it is that you're actually experiencing with human words. And so I'm at a loss for words to describe what it is that I've been going through lately in the spirit. I haven't developed the vernacular, the vocabulary to articulate that yet, which is cool. But Jeremiah 3:15, what's a pastor? I shall raise up shepherds, pastors over you after my own heart that will feed you with knowledge and understanding. Cool. I don't have knowledge or understanding of the things that I'm going through currently. So how am I supposed to feed you with it? Right? I don't even have the words to wrap around it yet. So that level of just spiritual ecstasy versus in the flesh, frankly, being at any moment capable, and not just capable, willing to tear someone apart limb from limb with my bare hands. And those two extremes are exhausting. And so with the exhaustion that's taking place between these two extremes, I am supposed to be on sabbatical. I was told this at the end of 2024. And right now I'm supposed to be on sabbatical. What does that mean? Take a period of rest. And I typically do during the winters, where sabbatical for me looks like not stop everything you're doing, but just turn the volume down a little bit. Just do less of all the things that you're doing so you can maintain homeostasis, because all the things that I do are important, and there's a blessing in that. There's value in that. There's a purpose to my life. I can't not do Grindstone. I can't not do Caleb House. I can't not do Refuge. I can't not be a father or a husband, right? I can't not do Bear Independent. And this is my recovering, overthinking brain, classically diagnosed workaholic brain saying it's not possible for you to stop. When Yahweh Elohim, creator of the heavens and earth, said, stop. And so weeks ago, he told me that, son, your sabbatical now extends until after Sukkot, which is the fall feast. And that scared the shit out of me. And I didn't tell anyone for weeks until last Wednesday. I finally couldn't. I couldn't keep that hidden anymore because the father was tearing me apart. And so I sent a series of messages to all of the people, the leadership inside of what we call the enterprise, so the businesses and the ministries, saying, "Hey guys, I've been wildly disobedient by not sharing this with you sooner. Uh, I am now commanded to go on sabbatical, actual, um, until after Sukkot in the fall." And I got a lot of good questions like, "Cool. What does that look like? Like, what does that mean for us?" I'm like, "I have no idea." "How do we interact with you?" "I don't know." "What are you allowed to keep doing?" "I'm not sure yet. Figuring it out." And so, yes, Kim Gordon study. Yes, we'll get to that in a moment. And so I'll tell you this. I was reading, I don't know, a week or two ago, and I was reading a an excerpt of a story about Charles Spurgeon. This guy up here. There's Mr. Spurgeon up there. And Spurgeon was a preacher in the late 1800s in London, England. But he was also lesser known. He had an orphanage with over 500 kids in it. And it was winter in London, and he had gotten his P&L, profit and loss statement, from his help, and it basically said, "Mr. Charles, Mr. Spurgeon, we have no coal, we have no bread, we have no money, we have no silver to pay the help. Um, Things are bad. We have nothing." So Spurgeon prays, and he says, "Lord, I need help. Help me help these children." And the Father hits him with, "Go preach." So he does. He saddles up his horse and he rides all over England preaching for a month. And Spurgeon could preach. I mean, hellfire and brimstone balanced with grace and mercy. The man could preach. And after a month, he arrives back to his office in London and he counts out all the donations that he had received. And he had about 300 pounds sterling. 300 pounds sterling. In today's money, about $38,000. And he's like, "Lord, thank you. Father, thank you. Now I can feed our 500 orphans. I can buy bread. I can buy coal. I can make payroll. Thank you, Father." And the Spirit says to him, "Give it to George." And he says, "What?" "Give it to George." And Spurgeon says, "Lord, I can't. I can't give it to George. I have my own problems. I have my own children to take care of, my own bills to pay. I can't give it to George." Now, I'm reading this wondering, why is my face leaking right now? George was George Mueller, who was in Birmingham, England, who had his own orphanage of 1,500 children. But George didn't have a congregation. George wasn't gifted with the ability to preach the word. So what George did was he prayed. And George was in the midst of a year-long commitment. I guess in today's social media world, we'd call it a challenge, where the father told George Mueller, "You don't tell anyone what you need. You just ask me, and I will provide it." So Mueller said, "Okay." At one point, Mueller was down to a cup of flour, 1 cup, 8 fluid ounces of flour for his orphanage of 1,500 kids. And a widow showed up at the gate. It said, "Mr. George, do you have any food?" "I have no food." And he said, "I have a cup of flour. Would you like it?" She said, "Oh, yes, Mr. George, I would love that. I could make a small loaf with that. I could be fed today. Give us this day our daily bread." And so Mueller hands over his last cup of flour to this widow and is just beside himself, praying to the Father. And shortly thereafter, a mule cart shows up with 2,000 pounds of provision on it, flour and butter and eggs and coal and all the things. And the driver of the mule cart says, "Mr. George, the Lord told me that you needed this, so I brought it for you." So Spurgeon gets on his horse and rides to Birmingham and finds George Mueller in his office, on his knees on the ground, hands folded, eyes closed, praying aloud to the creator of the universe. Because it's winter for them too. Spurgeon walks in and he puts his hand on Mueller's shoulder. And Spurgeon and Mueller didn't get along. They weren't buddies. Spurgeon puts his hand on Mueller's shoulder and says, "Brother George, I've got something for you." And Mueller opens his eyes and says, "Brother Charles." He says, "Yes, I've got something for you," and hands him an envelope with 300 pounds sterling in it. And both men weep. Mueller says, "I was just praying for 300 pounds. That's what we need to get through this winter. I was just praying for 300 pounds. Brother, thank you." And they both weep in the spirit. And Spurgeon gets back on his horse and rides to London. And it's winter and it's cold and it's gray and it's gross. And he gets back to his office, his orphanage. Sitting on the corner of his desk is an envelope. No name, no address, just an envelope addressed to Mr. Spurgeon. And he opens it, and there's 319 pounds British sterling, or $40,000 in today's money, in the envelope. And he weeps. And he writes in his diary, "I shovel out, and the Lord shovels back in, and his shovel is bigger than mine." And so I'm reading this, just like, why is my face leaking? And that was on the 21st of February, 2025. And the Father told me on the 21st of February, 2025, that I am not allowed to ask anyone else for anything for a year, just like George Mueller. And so I need y'all's help with that. Hold me accountable in that. Don't let me get all ShamWow on you at times when refuge sales are lumpy, or, the wolf was at the door with Caleb House or Grindstone. Don't let me be disobedient to the Most High. And I have to tell you, it scares the shit out of me in the flesh, because I am a workaholic. But part of what the Father is breaking in me is this concept that I work to provide rather than provision is all from him. So, why am I being told to rest? Why am I being told to not promote or market right now? And the answer is trust. And in the spirit, learning to trust again, to really trust, is very challenging, very exciting, but very challenging. Now, what will sabbatical look like here? Um, I don't know. I don't know. Probably more organic content like this at the Bear Independent YouTube channel. I will still be present at a strategic level at Caleb House and Grindstone and Refuge Medical, but the teams are going to have to handle the day-to-day operations, and by and large, they do. But I've been telling all of them for a year or more, if your plan requires me to be successful, it's a bad plan. And so now we're going to really put that to the test. There are other things that I need to be doing. I know you do, Liberty. I know you do. And so, like, how can y'all within the sound of my voice help me in this? Number one, keep me accountable. Number two, please, please evangelize for all the things that we're doing for Caleb House, for Grindstone, for Refuge, because there are 47 people who pay their bills and build a future for their families because of these organizations. And I will not tell y'all what we need. I will tell Elohim, and be it his will, he will tell y'all. But the stuff that I need to be working on, focused on, studying, to use Kim's word, is frankly things of the spirit right now. Pastorship. Am I an ordained pastor? Yes. Do I have any experience at that? No, not really. Am I good at it? I don't think so. And yet, and still, people still come to me with questions. People still come to me for baptisms. I have a wedding to officiate in 2 weeks. It will be my second wedding. The first one was beautiful. It was for two friends that I love. And to this day, I don't know what I said because it was just the spirit flowing. It was gorgeous. Everyone wept with joy. It was beautiful. But I don't know what I did. So how do you replicate something that you don't know what you did? I have no notes on the thing because it was just a spiritual out-of-body experience for everybody involved. Um, but I have another wedding to do. And this one will also be beautiful. It'll be wonderful. But it's a little bit more structured, which is cool. because it's an opportunity to create a witness for people who will be attending the witness or who will be attending the wedding that aren't believers. And the bride and the groom came to me and were like, "This is how we want to do it to create a witness for these people who we love, but they don't know Yah, they don't know Yeshua." Awesome. Well, I don't want to mess that up, and so I've got like a whole playbook on what that wedding looks like, and it's in 2 weeks, and I need to be dedicating time to do that. We have the ruckus coming up in a week, and on Friday I'll be teaching the men's portion. There'll be 2 breakout sessions, one for men, one for women, and I'll be teaching the men's portion. I didn't know what the hell I was gonna talk about, but as of this morning, I do because the Father is good. I'm gonna be teaching on Romans 8. We're gonna read Romans 8 together as brothers, sons of Elohim. That's what Romans 8 is about. That's what we're gonna talk about. So that's good. Praise Yah, He gave me that. But I'm also supposed to deliver a sermon on Shabbat, and I have no idea what that is. I see the bones, the framework, but I don't know what the actual words are. And all of this is in an effort to not disappoint the creator of the universe and seeing with continuously falling scales from my eyes just how much of a disappointment I am. Also knowing I'm infinitely loved and fearfully and wonderfully made, and that I have a purpose in this time, and trying to do a better job of living up to that purpose and that expectation rather than just be a freaking disappointment. And that's part of that recoiling back and forth between spirit and flesh. It is not easy. And I'm unfamiliar with anyone speaking on the subject as to what that looks like. Because at least for me, like I'm very unlearned in this. These are new experiences for me. Nick, dude, if you are a disappointment, we are screwed. I'm trying to learn how to be better, is the point. And better means more obedient. So I'll leave you guys and girls with this. There's a rabbi, his name is Nati, who felt the need to get on a plane. Elohim woke him in the middle of the night and said, "Go talk to Bear." And so he did. And he still emails me, which is cool. And I met Nati at Refuge Medical on a Monday morning, which was ordained. And he said there are 3 klipas, or evil shells, here in us and in this world. One is the Edomites, the Romans personified as. One is the exile of Ishmael, and one is the Erev Rov. And so the Edomites, the Romans, represent the arrogance of yesterday. The exile of Ishmael represents periodom, rebelliousness, and that's today. And the Erev Rov is heresy. It's tomorrow. So we have yesterday, today, and tomorrow. These are our three klipas, our evil shells, our dysfunctions. The arrogance of yesterday, Edom, the Romans, that is not something that I have sorted out. It's still the me of yesterday, yesteryear, yester lifetime still manifests itself in me, especially at times when I'm operating in the flesh, because I have learned patterns of behavior of anger, greed, lust, untruthfulness, ego, pride that can still be accessed in the flesh. This is what Paul's teaching in Romans. I don't do what I want to do, and I do what I don't want to do. Flesh versus spirit. Book of Romans is flesh versus spirit. It's beautiful. But that's yesterday. Don't let yesterday ruin today. And yesterday's already done for. It's already bought and paid for by the blood of Messiah. It's already gone. Praise Yah, we all woke up this morning. And so the opposite of arrogance is humility. And so we have to have humility, and I would submit grace for the people that we used to be so that we can learn the lessons of yesterday so that we're not operating in the arrogance of yesterday. Tomorrow, the heresy of tomorrow, is believing that we'll even wake up tomorrow and not realizing that if we do, it's a gift from Elohim. The Yehudim, the rabbis, teach that sleep is 1/60th death, and that you could die in your sleep. I think for many of us that might be a comforting thought compared to all the different ways that we could go. But the point is, there's nothing to say that you'll wake up tomorrow morning. There's nothing to say that you'll make it till tonight. So the heresy is believing that we have any control over what the future holds. We don't. And as a workaholic, somebody who has built businesses and systems since I was 17 years old, almost everything I do is for tomorrow. It's not for today. It's for tomorrow. The heresy in that is thinking that I can outwork the will of Elohim. And so the opposite, how do we deal with that heresy? It's personal communication with Yahuwah, Yod He Vav He, the Creator, with God. Please, Father, be at your will. Let tomorrow bring this. Be at your will. Let me wake up again. Thank you, Father, that I woke up today. So the opposite of yesterday's arrogance is humility, to learn the lessons. The opposite of tomorrow's heresy is personal communication, thankfulness, gratitude with Yah, which brings us to today. And the issue of today is rebelliousness. And this is what has been kicking my ass for a month and a half. Not rebelliousness and like, I'm not playing drums in satanic metal bands again. I'm not banging whores. I'm not doing lines of coke. I'm not drinking a handle of Jim Beam every night. I'm not listening. I wasn't doing the big, scary, challenging things that he told me to do. Which brings us to trust, bitachon, complete and utter reliance on Elohim. I've been teaching on bitachon for 6 months, but I haven't been living it. Complete and utter reliance on Elohim. Sure, in the spirit, but here in the flesh, I need to see those third quarter projections. So the opposite of the rebelliousness, the periodome of today, is obedience. And the reason we're having this talk this morning, we best teach what we most need to learn. Agreed, Stormy Nights. Agreed. So, the opposite of being exiled, rebellious today, is obedience, being in the house of the Most High. By the blood of the Son, I would submit. And that's what the Father is working on with me, and how that affects the way in which I show up here and elsewhere. I don't know yet, because I don't have a map sheet for it yet. And I'm trying desperately to operate in the Spirit, to where with complete and utter confidence I could tell a mountain to move and it would, rather than operate in the flesh, where with complete and utter confidence I could tear someone limb from limb right now. Because anger is comfortable to me. And here's the thing. I used to say that anger was my superpower, but it's not. It is my false self, the ego of my false self, making anger a superpower, when in fact anger is armor. And armor covers up my actual superpower, which is love. But because people have been bad stewards of my love, it has led to wounds that still hurt, some of which are fresh, that then gets covered up with anger so that no one can wound me again. But the problem with that is the armor prevents more wounds, but it also prevents the love from leaking out, which is then being disobedient to the nature that Yah created you with in the first place. So the anger of the flesh covers up the love of the Spirit, and that's not good. And so getting more comfortable, more trusting with, I can take the armor off, knowing that there will be more wounds, is a slow and painful process for me. But it goes back to bitachon, trust, complete and utter reliance in Elohim. So, shifting gears real quick. Tim Flower, you're 8 up. Cool. Did you know that 61% of the internet, 61% based on a new study, is fake? Is bots and bot accounts and autoresponders. 61%. That's fun. So here's what I'm going to do today after I get off this live stream with y'all. I need to move a shed that my wife is going to turn into a chicken coop, because she has 21 eggs that she's about to put into the incubator to make more laying hens. That's happening today. This is separate from the meat birds that are about to be in process once spring fully springs. Because December for us will be the beginning of our Shemitah year. So, chicken coop shed move. I'm going to decommission the gazebo today, which is painful for me because I love that gazebo and it fell over because it wasn't built to withstand a foot of snow. My fault. Comma. It has to get moved because it's on top of our fire pit where we roast sheep, and Pesach, Passover, is coming, and I need a place to do that. So, decommission the gazebo today. We are going to move our asparagus bed, an 8-foot bed of asparagus that's just absolutely filled with what do you call them? Bulbs, nodules, whatever. Um, so we got to relocate that from old house to new. We've got trash and brush that needs to get burnt. That's going to happen. Need to restock the firewood in the house. And then we need to scavenge the old house for the last of the stuff that has any value that needs to come out of there before I smash it with the track hoe. Crowns. Thank you, Leslie Wilson. Because the county tax assessor is up my ass. And you guys know me. I'm no fan of the tax man. I literally put an AK on the front porch yesterday just because I was like, we need a porch gun. So AK porch gun, 2X prism. It's easy. All easy shots from the porch. So, and 7.6239 does better on, thin-skinned vehicles and windshield glass. Yeah. So, that's the show for this morning. I appreciate y'all. I will see you when I see you. Please, please keep me and all the people at Refuge, Caleb House, Grindstone, Bear Independent in prayer. Me for obedience, them for provision. Y'all have a blessed first day. Shalom.